Even folks, welcome to the view. Wasn't ready for that at all. Much shorter than I thought it was going to be. I've got someone knocking on my front door right now, canvassing for our local elections, and I don't care. So they can stand down there for as long as they want. I hope everyone's having a really good day. Hell of a performance last night. Hell of a result. I hope everyone started to come down or don't come down. Stay up. Enjoy it as much as you want. I just need to make sure everything's working and everyone can hear me. Mad, mad game of football and two games that have really turned what could have been a very disappointing end to our season back around and possibly back in our favour. I'm going to go through a few bits tonight. I might not get a whole lot of chat done, so just to be mindful of that, I hope that's okay. We've got a bit to get through. I want to talk about the game in as much detail as we can. We will get to the point of Mr. Wagner being sacked by Norwich after the game last night, which I think is a slight overreaction by them. Also, just to say, the Not Another Leeds podcast are going live at 7:30 tonight, so this will probably run pretty much close to whenever they're going live. So if you like a bit more lightheartedness in your podcast, there's a lot of fun. It's always a lot of fun. There's a redirect straight after this one, which will kick you over that way if you like. If you like. I want to kind of go through a few bits tonight. I want to talk about the everyone to a man pretty much stepping up and performing last night. I'll talk about the individual performances in a bit more detail. I want to talk about tempo. Talked about it all year that we should rename this channel to Tempo. Now we've talked about it so often this year. I want to talk about the front players, Joe Pirot playing as an out and out number nine for the first time. I loved it. I'm here for it. More of that, please. Also the goals that went in and how we all felt as a crowd with the goals going in. And I also want to talk about a couple of players and different bits and pieces, the setup of the team, the statistics. And I'm going to pull some stuff from LUFC data to go through just how comprehensive a performance it was last night, but some individual data that kind of tells the story that we're heading back maybe towards where we were after the turn of Christmas and into our very positive run that we had this season. So, yeah, there's a lot to get into. We'll probably go about 30 minutes, 45 minutes. We'll see how we go. But I want to start off with a few bits and just take us back to the very start of the game. Go all the way back. Go all the way back to the start of the match and to the teams being announced and the lineup being announced. The interesting piece for me was we saw one main change for Leeds, but comparative to what we'd seen against Norwich, probably meant an overall style of play change. We saw Sam Byram drop out with a hip flexor problem, which is becoming the norm with Sam. And I think we all know what to expect with Sam. Sam's a good player to have when we need him off the bench for, half an hour. Good player to come in and start the odd game when you need to rest somebody else or you need to rotate around or you've got to push Archie in the middle of the park. But you're not going to get back games out of the player. So that's just the way it is. Just what we've got with Sam. He hasn't cost us any money and he's earning very little money. So I will take every second that Sam Byram can play for Leeds. And I have a lot of time for Sam. But anyway, that was a big change. We saw Archie Gray revert back to right back out of midfield. We saw Glenn Kamara, Ilya Grove rekindle their romance in the middle of the park. And my God, did they rekindle it last night? And Georgina Rutter in the middle of the park. I want to talk about the setup as well of this as well when we get to that. We also saw Norwich change their team and go with two attacking players. They've rushed back Harvey Barnes, Ashley Barnes, not Harvey Barnes. If Harvey Barnes was playing, he would have scored against us. They always does, doesn't he? Ashley Barnes and also Josh Sargent, both starting in attacking place in the 9 to 10, two advanced attackers there. And what that meant for Norwich as well, that kind of left them a bit more open in the middle of the park. It left an awful lot more room. And teams that historically this season, teams that have opened up as much as they did this year against us, when we've been on form, we have ripped teams apart. Ipswich being a prime example of that. So huge, huge decision by David Wagner last night to make that decision to go and open up a little bit. And if Leeds didn't start the way they started, that could have caused us some problems and nearly did at one point. But because of how Leeds started the game and because of how Leeds set up and because of how Leeds got their tactics on spot, like a spot or on spot and on point last night, it meant that Leeds had a hell of a lot more joy than they would have had normally. And I said it I've said it a lot this year, but the first 10 minutes of every game are important, but for Leeds specifically so, because it kind of gives us an insight into how Leeds are going to set up for the entire game. And again, the words that I'm going to keep using are tempo, and I've used it all season. When Leeds move the ball quickly, Leeds are an incredibly, incredibly good side and very difficult to play against. When we move it slowly, we were a very average looking side. And over the last couple of matches leading into the Norwich game, Leeds have played with this methodical, plodding, slow tempo, which for me doesn't really play to our strengths. What tends to happen is it's a slow build up from the back. We're going backwards to the ball more often than we are going forward. I've no issue with sideways passing because it's designed to move opposition left and right. Fine with that. It's the tempo and how fast we do that because that upsets teams and unbalances them a little bit. And that doesn't always happen when you play slowly. What it also means is that your two wingers and sorry, in Somerville and in Nanto specifically, when we play slow, they tend to go higher an awful lot earlier and pretty much man mark the fullbacks, which one thing it does the fullbacks job for them and takes them out of the game. But it removes space as well, which means they're not as effective when we get the ball to find them in pockets to get runs at people. Cree tends to get smothered by a lot of players. Willie tends to just get bogged down. So from that point of view, the tempo is very important because if we move the ball quicker, it means the players aren't as high as quickly. It means that defenders come out to mark them a little bit more, which creates some space in behind. And Willie did it very well last night. The shape itself last night allowed us to push both fullbacks very high, Gray and Firpo. Firpo, and talk a bit about Firpo, phenomenal again last night. What a second half of the season he's had. What a turnaround he's had as a player. But it allowed both of them to push higher on up the park. That allowed Gruev and Kamara to sit a little bit deeper, which then gave this huge amount of space to Jorginho Rutter that we've seen earlier on this season him do so well in. But it also meant that what you also saw, sorry, was that Cree and Willie were a little bit deeper as well and dragging the fullbacks out of position, which gave them space in behind to exploit, which Willie Gnonto does incredibly well for the second goal when we get to that. Try not to sneeze now. You ever feel a sneeze brewing? You know it's there, it's coming. Try not to sneeze. But that was the fundamentally important parts for me were the setup and the tempo of how Leeds played. And the two of them, when they connect well together, really do frame how we play as a football team and how we're going to do in the match. You're always a little nervous, though, when we don't have the ball. And that's just things ingrained in Legion culture. We don't have the ball. We expect every attack to go in the back of the net. So there was a couple of moments that I was a little bit edgy on at the start, but I got over them pretty quickly. But I want to talk about the goals as well and how we feel as a fan base when we talk about goals. It doesn't matter how many goals Leeds score. You always have this little feeling inside you of we probably need one more just to put it to bed. And we were 3-0 up. I was thinking, this game should be dead. It should be dead. But then your brain does that horrible thing of going back and thinking about Derby, even though you don't want it to go back and think about Derby. And that's still in the back of your head of, well, there's a possibility here. And what if this happens? We could do it a fourth, which is crazy to say out loud, but we got the fourth. And I calmed down at that point. But you do always have that bit and you're going, two goals is a dangerous score and three, probably good enough, but we could do it a fourth. Then you get the fourth, you're like, yeah, okay, maybe. But then you want us to thump them. Then you want to go five, then six, and you really want to go at them. So it's an interesting one. Any questions, by the way, that do come in on the chat, I'll try and save them. I'll try and cover them at the end of this as well. I'm just going to scroll through as quick as I can. There's a lot of comments, but I won't get through most comments now because I want to kind of get through this stuff as quick as we can. But there's a couple of interesting comments and a lot relating to Pat Bamford, and we'll get to that in time. Moving on, let's talk about the tactics in both home and away games because there was a lot of question marks around the first game of the semi-final, where we saw a more passive Leeds, especially the first half. Second half less so. We talked about the re-emergence of Glenn Kamara, and again pointed out that Lucky did a fantastic video on Glenn Kamara, and again it applied to last night because again Glenn Kamara last night ran the show for me. What was the point? Oh yeah, that was the point. The tactics of both games. Train talk on. Yeah, the tactics between both games. So the first one was very clear and very obvious to me of keep it tight. The change in formation was more of a 4-3-3 for me than it was a 4-2-3-1. Actually, Gray in a 10, but for me, Grew Evan was sitting very deep as was Kamara, and that meant that Archie was sitting in a more advanced 8 role for me, not out and out number 10, which made Leeds more compact and meant that Norwich to go around the outsides of Leeds more often, and we seemed to cope with that pretty well. So from that perspective, uh, first leg, fine. Get a nil off, get a clean sheet. And the clean sheet's huge. And I've talked again about this all season. For me, the clean sheets are massive because it's a very solid foundation. Leeds' run of 17 games without defeat and conceding from open play all came on the basis of a solid foundation of keeping clean sheets, and they did really, really well. So for me, hugely important to get that. And again, it carried into last night then as well. We saw another clean sheet, but we saw another solid performance from the back line. So for me, over both legs, Daniel Farkas seems to have got his tactics absolutely spot on. We saw a conservative first leg designed to give Leeds the maximum opportunities to win the game at home. Then we get it at home, we saw a Leeds team that just went for it, and they went for it last night. The tempo when we came out of the blocks was fantastic last night. The other thing we're talking about was the crowd, because the atmosphere in Ellen Road, and I'd love to be there every single day of the week. I always say that I love the place; it's a special place to me. But those who get to go on a regular basis, Leeds crowd are phenomenal. They are phenomenal, and I talked about this time last year when the crowd turned on the team, and I think I said at the time, and I agree with it now. I agreed with the fans turning on the side because of what they were seeing on the pitch and the sidelines, and what was going on in the club in a whole was a mess. After the Southampton game, I talked again about that big roar that went around the pitch as the players did their lap of honour. I was brilliant to see that because it told the players that the fans were still behind them. Those who stayed, it told them that they were still behind them. And last night we saw another step up of that as well. The flags are great and the scarves are great. It's so great to see that. Lee said it here. So proud of that crowd. And there's a portion of the Leeds crowd that go to games that have a problem with people who don't get to every game. And they pop in here every now and then. They'll say things like, don't go to games, not a real fan, all that kind of stuff. But the vast majority of the fans that go to Ellen Road, I like to say, as a person who doesn't get to go there every now and then, it really does say an awful lot for the club how good that crowd is. People talk about the atmosphere in Ellen Road as being a unique environment. Commentators in Sky Sports last night said Ellen Road, the unique environment that you get at Ellen Road. Crowd last night were phenomenal. They've been phenomenal all season. The away crowd, without a shadow of a doubt, have been brilliant all season. Always are. But the crowd as a whole this year generally has been very, very strong. But last night it was different level. It just kept on going. It was song after song, momentum after momentum. It just kept building and building and building and building. And you could see the players were grabbing onto that. And Joe Rogan and Ethan Ampadu talked about it after the game, and they talked about the 12th man stuff, which is a cliche, I know. But it really seemed to drag them on last night. It really seemed to get them out of the blocks. The players were ready for this. They were up for this. And again, I talked to different people this week about, you know, the players wanting to play in big, big matches, and you shouldn't be shying away from them. I think myself and Stats talked about it last week. But the fact that they just keep going, is massive. It's just, I think the whole thing was massive last night. I love that atmosphere. Players want to play in that environment. They got a chance to play in last night, and they didn't shirk with it. If anything, the opposite happened. They stepped up, and by hell did they step up last night. But I think Norwich tactics as well. David Wagner obviously wanted to go for it, played into Leeds' hands a little bit, but Leeds needed to be on it, and they were on it to a man. And I can go through everyone. Subs that came on, I didn't think any of them, any of them let themselves down last night. I think every single player to a man stood up. It was brilliant to see the atmosphere in the ground. It was brilliant to see the effort that was going through each and every single player. The extra runs, the defensive run, the ugly side of the game that we talk about an awful lot, tracking back and getting the ball when you know, it's easier to not to run back. It's easier to stand beside your player. But Georgina Rutter tore around the park last night from a number 10 position, back to the stuff we saw him doing earlier in the season, tackling players in his own final third of the pitch was brilliant as well. Willie Gnonto worked hard last night. No waving of the arms, no moaning, no complaining. Just got his head down, worked on it. Had Shelley in his pocket, knew he did, and spoke to him consistently throughout the game. Every time Shelley tried to do something to annoy him, he poked back with doing something with the football. Did it the right way. It was great to see Chris Somerville, phenomenal. Progressive with the ball, looking to bring other players into the game, not trying to do it all on his own. Again, all the right things were done last night by the right players. The decision making, uh, still questionable at some parts, but you're going to get that from a young team and young players. But it was far better than it had been for the last 5, 6 games of the regular season. So massive there. Moving on to talk about the performance now, get into the actual details of the performance, and then go back to the tempo. We've talked about this. Speed of play is massively important. It's hugely important. When we do it better than anybody else. When we do it, we are the best team in the league. And when we go into the Premier League next season, assuming we go into the Premier League next season, for me, it's going to be massive that Leeds play with a high tempo because the players that we have suit that tempo. They do not suit a slow, methodical pace. It's got to be done fast, and the players have got to be on it. Every single one of them's got to be ready for it and up for the game. Someone asked me during the week about, why doesn't every player start games fast? Why does it take some players longer? And unfortunately, times of kickoff can affect certain individual players. Diet can affect certain individuals. They'll all be pretty monitored and pretty closely monitored on their diets. But I know morning kickoffs, it can just be harder for some players to get themselves going and get warmed up to game pace as quickly as others. Some can go in and just do their warm up and be ready to go. Others need 10, 15 minutes of game pace to get into it because training and warm ups, they're still not game pace, even though you want them to be. So getting that tempo right is massively important, and Leeds being able to do it as regularly as they have done it this season has been phenomenal to see. But it's hugely important, and it will be important going to the final. No matter who we play against, our tempo will be massive. The one concern I have with the final is the possibility of playing Southampton, who pretty much seem to have had Leeds' number this season. And but what I would say about that game is we haven't played at a high tempo against them in either of the two games that we played against them this season. Both have been games where Leeds played at a slow tempo. So if Leeds can get the tempo right for that game, there's no reason why Leeds can't go out and win that match if it's Southampton. And if it's West Brom, it's West Brom. They're still a very good side. I wouldn't take anything for granted at this stage. We're in the final. We're not. It's not done. The job is not done. There's still work to do. And moving on at performance and talking about some individual players, before we get to stats, I've written down some stats again from LUFC data on a couple of players to just highlight what those individual performances have done for the overall performance. But just from a standout perspective, Junior Firpo, his change in form, and I'm a person that wasn't a fan of Junior Firpo. Still question marks to see whether he can do it in the Premier League and if he's even here next season because it's just 2 years left on his contract. There's no offer of a new deal right now. If we go into next season, he's into the final year. You know, will Leeds look to move him on? Bigger question for a different day. But in terms of what he's done since the turn of the year, going forward, there's been no question mark around what he can do. He's clocking up assists again last night. He was playing in the false number 3 position that he seems to have created for himself. But he was brilliant. But defensively, he's been very, very good. Now that's where I've been hypercritical of Junior Firpo is going forward. He does a great job defensively, not so much so. But last night and again over the last couple of weeks, he has been probably one of Leeds' best players in the park, and that should be pointed out. I am a big advocate in criticizing people and praising them in equal measure. I never get personal with criticism towards players, and I never go with definitive statements like that player shit. I never that because they're clearly not. If you get to that level, you're probably not. Might not be great enough for the level, but you're definitely not shit. So I don't like to do that. I like trying to be balanced. But when players have played badly, it's important to be able to criticize the performance. But when players play very well, it's important to be able to praise them when they do play well. And Junior Firpo has been that for me this year. You know, criticizing the first half of the year when I didn't think he was good enough. But in the second half of the season, he's been more than good enough. He's been phenomenal and has really grown into a leader on the team as well. You see on the laps of honour, he kind of leads the team out. He gets them moving. He talks to players in the park. I like an awful lot of what I saw in Junior Firpo this year. I just thought he was fantastic last night. Michael Pollard saying it here as well. Timing of the overlapping runs, they're destructive. They are destructive. It's exactly what they are. He used to be standing in the overlapping space. Now he's on fire. Yeah, and maybe it was just a case that he needed a run of games and he needed more games. Maybe it was just that, but he's got them and he's really really stood out. The two boys in the middle of the park, Glenn Kamara and Ilya Gruev. I'm a huge fan of Ilya Gruev, and I'm a big fan of him because he does some of the ugly stuff that goes unseen in games. Like his job is to win tackles and pass it 5 yards. That's his job. Essentially, that's all he is there for. Break up the play, get the ball moving, get it from back to centre backs, or go in and drop in between the centre halves and get it from Melier and open the game out. That's it. It's 5, 6, 7 yard passes, nothing complicated with him. And it sounds really simple, but not every team in the league has that player. We had it before with Calvin Phillips, and that's why he was so sought after as a CDM. You see Rodri with Manchester City as a CDM. They're not everywhere, but they're hugely important. He does a very important job for Leeds outside of the goal. We'll get to that. We'll definitely get to that. But outside of the goal, the job that he does in just keeping it calm. And when the two fullbacks do bomb on and Rodon and Ampadu go really wide, he just drops in there and covers that space so there's no passing lanes forward. It's great to see, fantastic to see. And I think he's a very important player for Leeds and has been since the turn of the year when he's come into that team and it has coincided with Leeds' run. Also, he allows Glenn Kamara to get more space to dictate the game. And Glenn Kamara dictated the game last night for me. First 15, 20 minutes, maybe not so much, but he was looking for the ball constantly, left side, right side, central, moving around the park, looking for the ball continuously. And then, again, the last two games, he has been phenomenal. Again, I say it, go check out Lucky's video on him. It's worth watching. It's worth watching. He's a phenomenal player. He had a really, really good game. Two of them were fantastic in the middle of the park. And that's that solid block to build everything else on when you get into our attacking players. They did their jobs last night. And then when you move forward and talk about the three behind the one, that was Cree, Jorginho, and Willie Gnonto. All of them showed the form that they've shown their best moments this year, but all of them showed at the exact same time. Jorginho Rutter back to his best, I would say, in terms of being involved, dropping the shoulders, little turns. All of his tricks were coming off last night. He was busy last night. He was all over the park. A little bit of a break seems to have done the world of good, but he was phenomenal last night, and we need him to be like that in the final as well. But this is just the right time to be coming back into form with that final looming on the horizon. Chris Somerville, as I said last night, decision making for me is always the big thing with Cree. And will he do the ugly side of the game? Will he track back when it's not going his way? He did it. Did it last night. Did it really, really well. and released the ball at the right times last night. Didn't hang on to it that second or two longer he tends to do from time to time. But outstanding. And there has been some criticism of Chris Somerville recently, and I just don't get it. The guy's got 25 goals this season. We'll get to some stats on that. He is the first Leeds player to hit 25 goals, the youngest Leeds player to hit 25 league goals in a season. I hit 25 goals, all goals, sorry, in all competitions in a season since Alan Smith did it in February 2001. That tells you that. And that was a good side that Alan Smith was coming into it as well. So he's been phenomenal for Leeds. 25 goals in the season. He has more than carried his weight this season. So if he has a bad game, he's a young player. He's allowed to have a bad game. They're all allowed to have off days. That's how they react to him and come back from it. And last night he came back from it. And then Willie Gnonto, a mature professional performance from Willie Gnonto after what I thought was a pretty petulant performance against Norwich in the first leg. He was all business last night. There was no bravado. There was no nonsense. There was no messing around with people off the ball. There was no getting in the referee's ear. He just got on with the game. And also, just a quick note on the referee. How nice was it to have a referee that just didn't notice in the game? Barely noticed him. It's great to watch. Great to watch. But Willie Gnonto got on with his game last night and was super, super creative last night. Very, very busy. The ball he put in for Joe Pirro's goal is a sublime cross. And that goal in general is worth talking about. We'll go into the goals in a bit more detail later on, but it's worth talking about. It's a beautiful cross and outstanding. Yeah, and someone's just saying it here. Junior Firpo, 9 assists so far this season. And I think somebody said in a tweet earlier on, if he had started the season like this, he'd have more assists than Leif Davis, probably more goals as well. But yeah, it's brilliant. It's great to see. It's great. It's great to see. People ask me about the pitch size. Is Wembley regulation size pitch? And I saw Dan Moylan talk about this, where Phil said the pitch is bigger in Wembley, and Dan said that all Premier League clubs to be a set. I think there are some variations on that. There's a minimum and maximum that you can have depending on your stadium itself, the ground size. So there is some variations on that. But I would just, if Dan's gonna look it up, I wouldn't disagree with what Dan said about it. If the pitch is the same size down the road, fine, fine. Just go do your job. Just go do your job. Let's not look at other factors. The other part to talk about in the game is Joel Pirro. The decision to play him from the start, a lot of people wanted Matteo Joseph, and I'm okay with this, and I'll back this up and I'll say the reason people want Matteo Joseph is he's the most natural replacement for Pat Bamford, and he adds probably a little bit more than Bamford in certain areas based on a very small sample size. That should be said. He was excellent last night. He played as an out and out number 9. He stayed between the centre backs. He dragged the centre backs out of position, which was very important for the goal that he got as well. The movement before that goal, he occupied them in spaces. He was tidy in possession. He done a lovely touch of ball came out of the ground, just flicked around the corner. Where his first touch isn't always great. Last night it was bang on. He came back and helped out when he needed to. He started moves on the left hand side for one of the goals. For George's goal, he starts the run on the far hand side of the park. So all round last night, it was a far more involved performance from Joel Pirro, but doing the letter of the law job, playing as a number 9 and staying as a number 9, linking the play, holding the ball up, getting in between the centre backs, being in the box when you need it. Could have had a hat trick last night. Probably should have. Probably should have. But an excellent performance. And if he's finding those positions, he's going to score more goals. He's 2 goals in his last 2 home games for Leeds. There's a bit of form there as well. So probably a very likely starter for the final. And I have no issue with that if he plays the way he played last night. The other big moment in the game and talking performances is that Ilan Melier won. He gets an awful lot of stick from a certain group of people. And again, I say when he's not been great this season, he has looked shaky when pressure's been on Leeds at the back end of the season. I'm not going to say he's been brilliant all season. He hasn't. He's a young goalkeeper. He makes mistakes. He'll make more, but he will have big moments. And he's had some massive moments against big teams this year. 2 games against Leicester, he made 2 important saves. That one that he picked out a top corner against Leicester, which gave Leeds the win pretty much, was a huge moment. And again, last night, in the one save that he has to make in a moment where you get an uncharacteristic mistake from Ethan Ampadu, Josh Sargent bursts through and should score, and bring it back to 2-1. And Ilan Melier makes a outstanding save. It is a world class save. Daniel Farke called it a world class save, and Simon Grayson labelled it as a career defining moment by the Iceman. So great to see that. And again, talking about Melier, when he's under pressure and people are on his back and things aren't going great, he can be a little nervy in goal. But he's 24 years of age, he's a young player, and that's going to be the way it is until he gets more mature. But when he's confident, he's a different man altogether. He's sparking at the back line. He's taking the ball. He's spraying balls out. His distribution was very good last night as well. And his sweeping when it was needed was very good last night as well. And a top save by him. People want better goalkeepers in the Ilan Melier on his day. There's few that are better than him. I know he has his moments, and unfortunately, look at Manchester City's goalkeeper a couple of weeks ago. Like they all had the moments. They all had these moments where they make mistakes. Look at what's his name? Plays for Bayern Munich. The goalkeeper there drops the ball that sees Munich get knocked out of the Champions League in semi final to Real Madrid. Be one of their best players. Happens if goalkeepers make a mistake, it's a goal. Other players make mistakes. There's usually somebody else to cover you. So I thought he was excellent last night, and it's a massive save. And again, I think for those who have criticised him at the moment when he deserved it, there's no problem there. I have no issue with that. But when he does something like last night, it should be said as well. It's balanced. It's fair. And then moving on to the final bit, just I've written on my notes about the performance. Could we have scored more? Probably could have. We probably could have. We've had some, and I'll go through them. The chances that Leeds missed. Somerville has a chance before we scored the first goal where instead of pulling the ball back to Firpo or Georgie after getting the ball for a lovely little flick back from Georgie, he shoots over. Then you have Joe Rodon's header, which goes wide. Times that jump better, he probably scores. You have Nonto after it was 3-0. Counter attack goes one on one with the keeper. Should probably shoot a bit earlier or take it on the yard further even. He misses that. Georgie has a run, does great work past the Firpo, beats the keeper. Ball's panned out. Georgie gets it, runs across, and then and then I think it's Stacey on the line blocks it. It's that one. Joe Pirro has two that he could possibly score. Somerville has a header that he could probably do better with. So we could have scored more goals last night, but we scored four, and that was enough, and that's all it needs to be. So a massive performance by every single player, and thoroughly deserved the praise that they got from that. Moving into the statistics of the game, and there's some really big call outs here, and we'll put some stuff up on the screen in a sec to go through it. But just to highlight how how good the performance was last night, and then individuals. Ilya Gruev's free kick in the 7th minute is the earliest Leeds have scored a free kick direct since Alan Thompson scored in their 4-1 win against Southend way back when. I think my first reaction, I started screaming when Ilya Gruev scored that goal last night. Ilya Gruev, yeah, scored that goal last night. Was we scored a free kick. And Rafa or Phillips were the last players to score a free kick, but what a free kick and what a clever man, as he pointed to his head as well. The little conversation with the bench about in swinger or out swinger, and he decides to have a link. There's a really subtle moment in that, and we'll get the goals, I said, in more detail in a sec, but just a really crucial moment. As Somerville runs over the ball, one of the wall goes with him. It's not important on the just looking at it. Doesn't look like it's an important thing because the player that moves isn't the side that Gruev goes. But as he does that, the player that's left in the wall takes a tiny step to his left to Gruev's right, and that's exactly where the ball goes. So that slight little subtle movement all of a sudden opens the whole thing up, but phenomenal. And I said Chris Somerville is the youngest player to score 25 goals in a season since Alan Smith did it in 2001. But if you go through the overall stuff, and I'll throw this up on the screen here just to give you a look at it. I'll get rid of that overlay so we can actually read the thing. Again, thanks to LUFC data for this stuff. But if you just look at just some top line here, touches lead 706 versus 538 from Norwich right there. That just tells you how much the ball Leeds had and how much Leeds moved the ball around the park. And it's an important number. In the opposition box, this is a huge one. Leeds had 34 touches in the opposition box. In recent weeks, we've had so few touches in the opposition box. We've barely gone into the opposition box. That's massive in terms of confidence and form and building the right things. That's massive. Norwich, seven. Possession perspective, Leeds 58% of possession, 42%. I actually thought Leeds had more of the ball than they did. Norwich had a spell in the second half when Leeds kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit, but still great to get back into dominating possession again. Total shots, this is a huge one. 18 from Leeds versus 4 from Norwich. Considering the kind of game this was and what the first leg was like, to be able to knock up 18 shots on goal is massive because we haven't been near that this year. And the next one's even more impressive. 11 of those shots hit target versus 1 from Norwich, and that's that save from Ilan Melli and how important that save was, as it could have turned the game slightly in the other direction. And then successful take-ons. This is huge as well. Is successful passes is huge there, but take-ons 11 versus 4 shows a bravery from Leeds. Shows that Leeds were trying to get at them and run at players this in this particular game. And it was brilliant. Accurate long passes are good. Jules won, shows up for a battle. Didn't win as many tackles, but didn't have to because we passed the ball better. We kept the ball better. They had to do the work. So all huge, just a massive numbers there, but very much in our favour, and it was great to see. The other thing I wanted to talk about and kind of bring into a bit more light on this was individual passing accuracies because it's hugely important to how Leeds play. And we talked again about tempo. Everyone's sick of Jerry saying tempo, but it is important, and it's important to drive it home. If you go through the passes, and these go back to that 17 game run that Leeds were on, Ilya Gruev, 96% passing accuracy from centre of the park, the defensive midfielder. Joe Rodon, 89% pass accuracy. He had 77 passes during the game. And Joe Rodon last night for me was outstanding. I thought he was outstanding and very important in one of the goals that we got as well. The free kick, the build up to the free kick, he was hugely important to that. Winning the ball back twice after Leeds had lost it, and then forcing the free kick that Gruev took. Junior Firpo, 89% passing accuracy, 49 passes, and 6 touches in the opposition's penalty area. That's that false three position, playing as a false nine, whatever you want to call it. Huge, huge. 6 touches from a left back in the opposition box. Says everything about the flow of the game. But again, great passing accuracy. Archie Gray, the other side of the park, 85% passing accuracy, 29 passes. Slightly less, but a very accurate one. Then move into Ethan Ampadu, 93% passing accuracy from 88 passes in the game. He was back to his best last night as well. Phenomenal performance from him. Willie Nyonto tends to lose the ball a lot more, doesn't tend to be as accurate with his passes. Last night, 95% accuracy, 18 passes and an assist as well to add to that. And then the man for me in the middle of the park, Glenn Kamara, 93% pass accuracy from 71 passes. Massively important to how Leeds build up. You go through the spine there and where the passes start from. You've got Rodon and Ampadu with 89 and 93% respectively. You've got the two central midfielders in Gruev 96%, Kamara 93% in the middle of the park. That's massive. They don't lose the ball in those areas. We won't talk about Georgie. We won't we won't talk about Georgie's passing accuracy. That's not what he's there for. That's not what he's there for. But he did his job really well last night. But just again, just fantastic numbers and just brilliant some stuff. Going through the goals, the first goal we had, 7 minutes, timing the goals are very important as well. Getting that goal in the first 10 minutes dictates the game for Leeds. Forces Norwich out to play, even though I thought Norwich were already set up to come out and play. But you've got Groves free. The little look again, that little signal he makes to the bench. When you look back at it, you could think he's going for this, but he says afterwards he was asking in swinger or out swinger. But the keeper assumes out swinger straight away. Assumes out swinger. Very cute. And again, that little run up. But Joe Road on the build up to that wins the ball back, passes to Nanto, Leeds lose it, gets it, wins it back in a second time, bursts forward with the ball. He won the ball back twice, 10 yards into Norwich's half. That's how advanced the Leeds defensive line was. It's a big gamble at times, but it worked. Again, you got that cover with Gruev and Kamara sitting inside him as well, which helps with that as well. Then into the second goal, 20-minute mark. This kind of just settles everyone's nerves down a little bit. And this for me, and I've written down some notes because I want to get this right. It starts at the back, and we talked about the passing accuracy of the two centre backs as well. But if you go through it, Ampadu passes the ball to Rodon, Rodon to Gray, Gray to Nanto. As the ball is passed to Nanto, Pirro peels away from Gibson. He gets dragged out towards Nanto. And that's really important because the centre back. And the run through the middle is Pirro. Pirro is screaming for that ball and pointing where he wants it very early on. Nanto commits Gibson, then whips it around him. It's a beautiful ball. And it's, again, Max used to call it the corridor of uncertainty, that gap between the 6 yard box and the penalty area, penalty spot. Beautiful ball in there, and Joe Pirro makes his run in there. It's a beautiful header. But that movement from Pirro and from Nanto just separates that defensive unit and drags the centre back out of the area, which creates that gap for Pirro to get ahead of the ball, which the other centre back's the other side of him. But massively, massively important. But that's a phenomenal cross from Willie Nanto. Probably one of the best crosses I've seen this season from anybody. Pinpoint. It was excellent. The third goal comes in 40 minutes when Georgina Rutter absolutely mullers the ball in off the bar into the top corner. And this comes from a really nice passing move. Again, starts at the back, a lovely passing move. Then it goes out to the left-hand side. Joe Pirro goes on a hell of a run down the left wing, skipping past two players. And then he just probably drills it a little bit too hard at Somerville, but he gets it out of his feet, ties it up, squares it across for Pirro, for Rutter, who just smashes it in off the crossbar. It's a lovely goal, again, but great build-up in the work up to that. And then that thing about Somerville's decision-making and passing the ball went the right time and when not hanging on to it. Nailed it for me. And then the fourth goal in the 68 minute was it was an excellent goal. Lots to enjoy about this goal. Joel Pirro wins the ball back for Leeds, inside Leeds half, just inside Leeds half, turns and gets the ball going. He passes the ball into Chris Enser Somerville, who goes at the defence straight away, positive move, like a number 10, straight at the back line, squares it to Willie Nanto, who smashes the ball towards the bottom corner. Junior Firpo makes an overlap and run and doesn't stop, follows in. When I was coaching him and manager I played for as a striker, I was always told, the second someone shoots, head for the goalkeeper. Because if he palms it and you're gone early, you're there to pick up the scraps. Firpo was right there. He could shoot. He could have it. He's well within his rights to have a shot if he wants at that point. He doesn't. It's incredibly unselfish football. Pulls it back to Chris Somerville, who followed the ball in as well and gets a lovely tap in. And for me, just again, a fantastic fantastic goal, and just puts the game to bed. A phenomenal performance, top to the bottom. Talking points from the game, we've talked about a couple of them. We've talked about Joe Perot, as I said earlier this year. I thought that Joe Perot would have his moment this season. I think he might have had it last night, but I think there might be one more big moment in it for Joel Perot as we go into the final. Um, Excellent performance last night, not just in getting a goal. That's what he's relied on this season. Is you won't get an awful lot from Joe Perot, but you'll get a goal. Last night, an awful lot more than just that. Junior Firpo, I've already talked about him. You can wax lyrical about how he has been this season. Phenomenal performance from him. Two boys in the middle of the park, Kamara and Brew, absolutely excellent for me yesterday. These stats that we showed, looking at the stats from the game, but also those individual stats that we've talked about as well, they are all very, very similar to that period where Leeds went 17 games unbeaten and didn't concede a goal from open play. That is a positive trend to have going into a final. But a final is a final, it's its own game, it's its own little bubble, and anything can happen again. The other thing I wanted to talk about before we wrapped up was Liam Cooper. And it was great to be in a situation last night where Leeds could bring Liam Cooper into the game and allow him to have 10 minutes of football in Ellen Road and be very well involved. He had plenty of touches when came into the game. Love Liam Cooper or not love Liam Cooper. He has been a phenomenal captain for Leeds United over a decade of football. He has been picked as captain by multiple managers. Managers that do votes from players. Multiple squads have picked Liam Cooper as the captain. So, from people who know Liam Cooper better than any of us know the man and the impact that he has in the dressing room, to be nominated for captain by that many people, whether we like it or not, whether people like it or not, it's a testament to the man himself, and it's great to see a player actually get a chance to say goodbye to the fans. And I think in his program notes last night he did. There's a bit more detail on the news today on that. If you want to check that out, you can. Um, but the big one for me was Liam Cooper gets to exercise the ghosts of Derby County and the incident with Kiko Casilla when they ran into each other. He gets to exercise that. He gets to the playoff semi final at Ellen Road where it's positive, it's a clean sheet, big win. Gets to go around the park and say goodbye to Alan Oldham the right way. And I hope Leeds do the right thing, given the testimonial. I've been saying all year, I would love to see a Liam Cooper testimonial where the ex-players from the Bielsa team are invited back to play, and we get Bielsa invited back as well to coach that team. And so everybody gets to say goodbye the right way. That would be something I would love the 49ers and Parag Marathe to look at and do. One quick side note, actually, sidebar on that last night. It was great to see Parag Marathe at the game against last night. He had a lovely moment where the executive box cleared out and Parag just sat there when everyone was gone as fans were leaving and just soaked up what was going on the ground. It meant an awful lot. It was great to see. Jed York was in there last night as well. The Sky put the camera on Parag and like Leeds chairman Parag, but Jed York is the big backer in all of this stuff and sitting side by side with him in that game as well. But great for Liam Cooper to have that moment to say goodbye in the right way and hopefully lead to the right thing about a testimonial. And then on top of Melier and the confidence that he has and what he can do. And then finally for me, I love Joe Rodon. I just love him. He's the kind of player I would pick as a manager and a coach every single day of the week. He is 100% battle and 100% heart. He's a tidy footballer when he wants to be as well at times, but he's a battler. And for me, you need those players in your team, and he just goes into everything 100%. And I love it. I love what he's done for Leeds this season. I know they say don't fall in love with a lone player, but I think I might even like him more than I like Ben White. Ben White's was very tidy footballer, but Joe Rodon just has that little bit of niggle and bite about him that I love. I love it. So it's great to see that. Other thing just to finish on as well, I've seen a few people comment on this rumor that went down around about a split in the camp and players not getting on with each other, and people messaged me and said that they'd heard that there was a rumor. That team's not split. There's nothing split about that dressing room. Look at that reaction. The big one as well, Joe Perot and Chris Somerville don't get along with each other. Who's the first person to celebrate with Joe Perot when he scores the goal? Chris Somerville. Chris Somerville is. So judge it with your eyes, ignore rumor. There's a Football Insider put a thing out today as well talking about how fans want Chris Somerville turfed out of Leeds and nonsense. Don't believe that stuff. Judge it with your own eyes. Look at the players, look at the reactions. They were all in that together last night. They all celebrated together. That is not a split dressing room. It is a dressing room that went through a bit of bad form, and it happens. They're a young team, and there's no guarantee going to the final you get a performance like we got in the semi-final. Again, because of that youth element. But I would be a lot more confident now than I was going into that game that things are starting to go the right way and are starting to happen the right way. And wanted to finish up with a few questions before we get to the end. Just a reminder, there is a redirect straight after this to Not Another Leeds podcast. If you want a more light-hearted, fun podcast, it is one of the funnest podcasts out there. I love being involved with them. And I love watching it. It's an enjoyable one on a Friday evening, so you can check that out. But I'm going to get through a couple of the messages that we started. Matthew had said, does Bamford get back into the team? You weren't the only one. Helen Walker also say, what do you do if your Farke in the semi-final if Bamford is fit? For me, you go off the performances that you've just seen. If you put a striker in ahead of Pat Bamford and he's done really, really well, you can't then take that player out. If Joe Perot can play as a number nine, an out and out number nine, similar to how Pat Bamford plays for Leeds, he is probably a more prolific striker than Pat Bamford is. So you should be able to get a positive return on that. If the penny is dropped with Joel, if Farke has talked about they've worked on stuff, there is no reason why Joe Perot doesn't deserve to start in the next game. He scored in the last home game of the season against Southampton, scored in that game and scored last night. And again, could have scored a couple last night, but did score. So for me, I don't think he changed that. I think that team that started last night probably is the team you need to go with. Whether Farke decides to be a little bit more pragmatic going into that game and set up to be tight in the first couple of minutes because of how we've been against Southampton, I don't know. But I think it'd be very hard to change that team after last night. Lee says, shout out to Dafarka. Yeah, yes, tactics, man management words. Our gaffer gets it. Yeah, again, you judge over the course of the entire season. Considering what he inherited at the start of the season, considering the bit of a shit show that we had at the start of the year, no manager, take over, half the players wanting out of the club. There's a lot of people want a lot of these players that left back. I'm not one of those people. And I'm with Daniel Farke on this. You left to go and do things at a better place. Hasn't worked out for you. You can stay where you are. That's just my take. But I think Farke has been excellent, and he's done mostly got things right. There are some gripes, and it's understandable. You can have gripes about certain things. Does he use the bench quick enough? Probably not. Does he use as many of the benches as he should? Probably not. Does he give the young players more as much of a chance as he can? Probably not, with the exception of Archie Gray, who on his own is an exception anyway. So maybe not. Lee also says Moscow and TSB made a good point last night. We can't play 100-mile-per-hour football every game with 46 games. Burn out Bielsa. Like, this is the thing, Lee, and this is where I talk about tempo more than pace. Tempo isn't sprinting around the game for 90 minutes. Tempo is moving the ball quickly. Any manager or coach worth his salt will tell you you do less work when you have the ball. The quicker you move the ball, the more you move the opposition around the park. That just drags them across them around the place. Slower you move it, they can walk. You don't get tired walking. If you move the ball quickly, you got to run left and right, forward, back, forward, back. That keeps on happening. So for me, tempo is different to sprinting around for 90 minutes. I get Moscow's point. I don't disagree with most things that Moscow says. I like Moscow. But what I would say in this situation is tempo and running around are different things. Tempo is how fast you play the game, and not necessarily how fast you run around. That's individual pace and speed. For me, tempo is how fast you move the ball, how quickly you move the ball, how quickly you are in transitions going forward and backwards. Can your team get back in behind the ball when you've lost possession quick enough? Can you get ahead of the opposition when you win the ball? Those things. Even Evie says, Jay, do you think there's a possibility of a move to 4-3-3 against Southampton as we lost the midfield battle? That's what I'm talking about, Evie, when I say he might be a little bit more pragmatic. Might be a little bit more pragmatic going into the second leg. Might be. I'd like to see us go for it and just get right at them. Just get right at them and see how we go. We'll see who we have. We've got like obviously West Brom and Southampton play tonight. West Ham have home advantage. You would expect them to win this game. Anything can happen. I'd love a Corberan final, but also just I'd like to avoid Southampton. But either way, it'll be a decent side coming in and in a good mindset to that game. Leeds just need to be ready for it. Folks, I'm going to start wrapping this up. I'm just going to say a massive thank you to everyone who has supported the channel. You can like and subscribe and all that stuff if you want to help us. We're actually gone to 32,500, heading towards 33,000. Crazy last couple of days. So massive thanks to everyone who's been subscribed. And I will remind you, Not Another Leeds podcast is happening just after that. It should be in the next 5 minutes. I'm going to do the redirect for that. Can I stall for 5 minutes? Are there any questions? I don't want to ask anything before we wrap up. Bandy, have to mention this guy, the most positive Leeds fan I've seen all season. We had so much the ball last night when Norwich saw the ball, they didn't know what to do. They didn't know what it was. Yeah, they weren't. We just dominated them. And the press last night was excellent. The press was excellent. That's also said here by Matt. The press looked so much better last night. The press has to be done by everybody, or it doesn't work. Can't have ones and twos go on the press. You've got to go through absolutely everybody. And I thought last night they were excellent with that. To a man, I thought they did the right things. And then West Yorkshire Retro Gamer, Hope Cooper, Dallas, and Aiden can become coaches at Leeds United. You look at the amount of coaches that play, amount of players that played under Bielsa that went on to be really, really good coaches. These guys have played under some very good coaches at Leeds and some very bad coaches at Leeds, and that can really form who you're going to be as a coach. The bits that you don't want to be, and the bits that you definitely want to be. And three of them have definitely had a good education. There's some good managers and some not so good managers. So I'd like to see him stick around the club and the club to find some bits for them. So we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. Folks, I'm going to stop padding here and I'm going to move on. Massive thanks, as everyone, as I said, for supporting the channel. The redirects should kick in now to head over to Not Leeds Podcast. Go give the lads support. We're on 666 subscribers. That's a dangerous number to be sitting on. That needs to change. But a brilliant podcast. It'd be great to see them get some more subs as well. So go check them out if you want to. And I'll be back on Monday morning for more Leeds news. Thank you, as always, for watching and supporting the channel. And I'll see you then. Have a great weekend. Bye.